When it comes to implementing new agile working policies, we foresee tricky issues arising over the interaction between office-based employees and those working more consistently from home, with the risk of creating a two-tier workforce. While the pandemic has led to many businesses implementing a whole-scale review of how their business operates, we believe now is also the time to fully consider your organisation's connection between office presence and employee rewards. Next, the need to make a conscious effort on the part of managers to ensure equal access to business information and equal division of workflow. Managers need to be aware of their own prejudices and bias towards certain ways of working. For example, just because some managers have worked in a particular way for years and prefer this to continue, things have changed and staff retention and attraction will be at stake if things are not handled well. Simple things like being conscious of the terminology we use can make a difference. For example, virtual working rather than remote working, with its connotations of being distant and removed, or return to the office as opposed to return to work. After all, what else have we all been doing for the last 16 months? Most of us have actually been working quite hard. Particular care should be taken to discourage the formation of office cliques, where employees regularly working from home may be left out of vital conversations or strategic meetings because they're not physically present. It's important to ensure that there is equal access to business information and workflow is divided equally. Home workers should not be allocated less stimulating work just because they're not in the office. Employers quickly perceive this as a demotion or a detrimental treatment linked to their decision to work from home. The continued use of remote technology, including apps and video conferencing, is critical to the success of embedding new working arrangements over the long term. Use this technology effectively and inclusively to promote your collaboration wherever team members are located. Senior manager training will be crucial to encourage inclusivity of home workers and prevent difficulties becoming entrenched and negatively affecting the culture. Managers should be encouraged to share relevant information and work across their entire team, not just with the visible staff in their office. The normal communication channels, such as a quick chat in the office, will be less relevant. So don't assume employees have all the information at all times at their fingertips. Managers should also be sure to question themselves. Have they actually done enough to include home workers in ongoing projects? As ever, treat employees as individuals when it comes to assessing their performance as a home worker. What are their specific needs? For example, do they require more training? Are they facing any particular problems with the home working under your new policy? Has it negatively affected their performance or productivity? There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and you may see marked improvement if you engage with employees on the ground. Agile working as a permanent development is likely to be new for the majority of employers, particularly in the professional services and financial sectors, so it's going to be a learning process. There may be benefits which have not yet become fully apparent, such as the extent of financial savings on office space. That said, sticking points and drawbacks will also inevitably appear, and you need to be ready to address these and adapt to avoid a two-tier workforce from emerging. Next slide, please, Jess. As we move towards 2022 and agile working becomes the new norm, you will be faced with the HR minefield that is the annual pay and bonus reviews. As a starting point, we recommend the creation of a business-wide remuneration policy for 2022 at an early stage, which takes into account of any new working arrangements that you have consulted on and presented to the workforce. A remuneration policy which treats the workforce holistically, rather than differentiating between office and home workers on the basis of location alone, is likely to carry less risk. Remuneration decisions based on clear objective guidelines that assess both individual and business performance, for example, remains best practice. Individual circumstances such as particular conduct issues are, however, still relevant. As ever, performance guidelines should have been well communicated to employees and managers alike over the course of the remuneration period, leaving less scope for surprise, although we all know that this doesn't always happen. If you do intend to differentiate, consider how you will treat employees in various scenarios, such as how will you treat those working solely from home compared to those working on a hybrid basis with the majority of their week in the office? compared to those who are no longer based in London or have expressed a desire to move, and also those who are new joiners. If your intention is to differentiate on the basis of location, please ensure that you have clear, documented justification for why the business intends to take that approach. There may be legitimate reasons, such as the removal of London waiting allowances or a genuine change in the type of work performed at home. But the more evidence you have that the business reasons have been properly considered, the better, particularly when it comes to mitigating the risk of any employment claims. It remains the case that you should continue to have clear, neutral criteria for pay review and bonus awards, which instead of focusing on work location or work pattern, should look at the individual or business performance. Be mindful that some managers may have an unconscious and often sometimes an even conscious bias towards those who are more visible to them in the office, not least because those people may be better placed to actually promote what they do to their manager face to face and to manage their brand than those who are working mainly at home. HR will play an important role in challenging the assessment of performance to ensure decisions are robust and can be objectively justified. So look out for any differential treatment between individual employees or comparable teams, which could give rise to employment claim red flags. In particular, employees should not be individually penalised for their own manager's perception of absent home workers. Ideally, managers will be able to apply your pay guidelines objectively to both office-based employees and those at home, allowing individual managers to exercise complete discretion on implementing pay review principles can lead to various legal risks. Think about building in moderators into the pay review and bonus process if you don't already have them, and the role that HR can play in monitoring decisions by analysis of the pay and bonus recommendations and questioning managers if, for example, it appears those more frequently in the office are being rewarded better and why. One area of possible challenge to pay and bonus decisions is that those more present in the office may actually get better opportunities to perform and be rewarded better because they get the plum work. One view is that it's their choice where to work, and if they work more from home, they could do something about this by being more present in the office. But we're not actually convinced that this argument will cut the mustard with the Employment Tribunal, who will expect parity of treatment wherever employees work. Next slide, please, Jess. So how can it go wrong? Firstly, grievances can be brought by employees who are disgruntled by the outcome of the pay and bonus round under your internal, and they can bring these grievances under your internal policy, which, as we all know, can be really time consuming for managers to address. DSARs often go hand in hand with such grievances, with a view to the employee obtaining a paper trail of personal data that would support any potential claim. So, as well as wider data, any internal emails, meeting notes, and performance reviews that are formed as part of any remuneration process could all be up for grabs. There's also a risk of unfair dismissal claims if an employee resigns, and claims of constructive unfair dismissal based on breach of the implied duty of mutual trust and confidence when decisions about pay are not fair or based on an objective assessment of performance and contribution. In addition to such claims, would come hand in hand with a claim for unlawful deduction for wages if, for example, you implemented a pay reduction for fully remote employees without obtaining express consent. Next slide, please, Jess. A policy of paying home workers less as a group or awarding them a lower bonus in general may well face challenge further down the line. For example, there could be an indirect discrimination argument on the basis that such a policy disproportionately affects certain protected groups of employees. I'm thinking of female or potentially disabled employees. It's a well-established argument that female employees are more likely to have a caring responsibility, whether for children or elderly relatives, and therefore may be more likely to favour home-based working under your agile policy. Any disadvantage suffered as a result of being a home worker, for example, allocation of inferior work or exclusion for strategic meetings, or even social exclusion, could risk a discrimination claim, but none more so than lower pay rise or a lower bonus award. An employer may try to argue that their policy is objectively justifiable, even if you can show a legitimate aim for paying home workers less, for example, reducing overheads, removal of London waiting where there's no commuting. A tribunal would expect robust evidence that your approach was proportionate. So if there is another way of achieving the same cost reduction effect, this would weaken any defence. Finally, an additional claim that is worth flagging is an equal pay claim. But equal pay laws don't always apply, and it's dependent on the nature of the remuneration involved, being a contractual term. However, all technical arguments aside, higher earning employees are likely to be alive to all the potential claims available to them when it comes to pay and bonuses. So it's worth keeping these at the forefront of your mind.